side do you take? Mark at gbnews.uk. Do you think that we have heard good points from Niall, or do you agree with Fatima? Let me know. Coming up, in my take at 10, why Chancellor Jeremy Hunt is a nightmare for Britain. And my Mark Meets guest is former Conservative MP Neil Parish. Plus, we've got the papers at 10:30 with full panel reaction. But next, we'll speak to another Tory legend. See you in 2.
Weekday afternoons on GB News, we've got the whole of the UK covered. From 12 to 3, it's GB News Day with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Gloria Di Piero. You'll get the very latest on everything that's been going on across our great nation.
And from 3 till 6, watch out for GB News Live with me, Patrick Christys. I'm not here to mess around. With all the biggest topics and guests, you will always be up to date. GB News Day and GB News Live from 12 p.m.
Only on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and tune-in apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Time to get some responses on email. Lots of people very unhappy at the treatment of Truss, and we're talking here about a Truss betrayal. How about this? Truss, they say, give her a chance. Are they joking or what? Dan Kesh is not happy with what she's doing at the moment. You have a panel which comes across as a gaggle of chattering idiots. Giggling fools, which I know they are not. Please spare me. And that's from Joan. Very hard there on my lovely panellists tonight, who I think are contributing to what is a brilliant debate. Hi, Mark. I'm totally unimpressed by all MPs and our PM today. They all seem to be trying so hard to ruin our wonderful country. What on earth is going on? I'll get to more of your emails very shortly. Liz Truss should not resign. She should see it through, says another emailer. And no, Liz Truss should not resign. Some backbenchers should resign instead, says Derek. It's been another shaky day for the Tories, but is there some light at the end of the tunnel? Major financial markets reacted slightly positively to the news that Jeremy Hunt will now take over as Chancellor. Well, I'll be discussing him in my take at 10 shortly, but let's have a look at the economy and, of course, the politics of this. Let's catch up now with former Conservative MP and TV legend Jerry Hayes. Jerry, your reaction to what happened today?
Oh, it's absolutely appalling. I've said to you many times that Liz Truss would be a disaster, but I hadn't banked on her being a catastrophe. I mean, an hour before Kwarteng was sacked, and he was sacked, he didn't resign, didn't do it his own volition. Number 10 was putting out, she has complete and utter confidence in him, and there won't be a press conference. And then the press conference was just terrible. It's interesting listening to Niall Gardner saying the wets. It's got nothing to do with the wets. I mean, one thing that has done is completely united the party. She will be gone, I suspect, by Sunday, if not certainly by by Wednesday, because the markets will just kill her. As Margaret Thatcher said many times, you can't buck the markets, and the markets are not happy. The pound is still in a parlous state. And Jeremy Hunt, well, really, it doesn't matter because it was her budget. How many times did we hear her say, we are in lockstep, Kwasi Kwarteng and myself? So she sacrificed her friend, and that's it.
Yes, indeed. Jerry Hayes, do you honestly think that Liz Truss is days away from ceasing to be Prime Minister? Is it that dramatic?
Oh, it's that bad. Oh, it's that bad. The cabinet don't support her. And there are one or two people who sort of come out and come on the airways. But who is going to do the Sunday morning slot? Be interesting to see which poor devil is going to be wheeled out. The country has lost. The Tory voters have lost confidence. 64% people who voted Tory at the last election say she should go. And those are the people we've got to listen to. There is a move afoot. Whether it's going to work or not, I don't know, but I think it might, that Penny Mordaunt and Rishi Sunak will take over. But the economy is in a parlous state. People's pensions are going down. Today, the Bank of England says we can't prop up pensions anymore. They've stopped selling, or rather buying gilts. The economy has been crashed, and a penalty has to be paid if the Tories have any chance of winning the next election.
Jerry Hayes, I completely accept your... I accept your analysis. However, Liz Truss only goes if the party can unite around one candidate, and no such candidate exists.
I'm not sure that's right. The Mordaunt Sunak, and I mean, I don't know whether Sunak is prepared to do it. It seems to be gaining some traction at the moment, and there has to be a coronation. There cannot be a 7-week or even a 2-week leadership campaign because the markets will just kill us and we'll be even more trouble. Fact is, this is a failed economic policy. The aspirations, I agree with all the aspirations, but this is not the right time to do it. And the economy has tanked. You said a moment ago in your introduction.
Jerry, the Truss supporters and the Boris wing of the party absolutely detest Rishi Sunak. They consider him a snake in the grass and the man who engineered Boris Johnson's exit from number 10.
No, he didn't, actually. I mean, Boris Johnson self-binned. That's what happened. Boris was his own worst enemy. But, his history, he's not going to come back. And it's rather wishful thinking to say that he will. He's not going to come back. If the Tories got any chance at all, Truss has got to be ditched. She's got to be ditched to save the economy, let alone the government. It's a terrible situation.
Jerry, only a few seconds to go, but you are a broadcasting professional. We know that. But do you think logistically it's possible for Liz Truss to be dispatched in the next few days? Would she need to resign? What is the mechanism?
What will happen is there are lots of letters going into the 1922 committee. By now, her position is untenable. She would have probably been told this, and she'll be told, look, you've got to go for the unity of the party. If you stick there, we will get rid of you. 1922 committee will change the rules. Won't go to the party membership. A lot of them will get upset. Well, tough. They chose her. They made the bed, they're going to line it. And the fact is, we have got to have a coronation of some sort. We've got to get this economy together. And we don't want a Labour government.
There you go, Jerry. Thrilled to have you on the show. Let's catch up soon. Lawyer, top criminal barrister and former Conservative MP. And late night, Saturday night, sort of 80s TV legend as well. The brilliant, marvellous and always entertaining ex-politician. There you go. Thanks, Jerry Hayes. Lots more to come. In my take at 10, I'll be dealing with Jeremy Hunt, our new Chancellor, who I believe is a nightmare for Britain. A lockdown-loving, China-sympathising autocrat. Be afraid, be very afraid. That's Jeremy Hunt in my take at 10 in just a few minutes' time. And live in the studio, my Mark Meets guest is none other than Neil Parish, disgraced ex-Tory MP, chucked out of the Commons for looking at pornography. Who could blame him? It's very boring to watch all those politicians rabbiting on. But he's rebuilt his life, he's turned it around, he's seen the error of his ways, and he joins us shortly. Plus, my incredible panel, who will certainly be dominating the next hour. See you shortly.
Weekday afternoons on GB News, we've got the whole of the UK covered. From 12 to 3, it's GB News Day with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Gloria Di Piero. You'll get the very latest on everything that's been going on across our great nation.
And from 3 till 6, watch out for GB News Live with me, Patrick Christys. I'm not here to mess around with all the biggest topics and guests. You will always be up to date. GB News Day and GB News Live from 12 p.m.
Only on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Did he not? There you go. Lots to get through in the next hour. This is Mark Dolan tonight, and it's a government in crisis special. My Mark Meets guest is former Tory MP Neil Parish. He'll be reacting to the political turmoil that's happening. He's live in the studio, and we'll talk about his backstory. Chucked out of the House of Commons for watching pornography, but he's rebuilt his life, and he tells his story very shortly. Plus, we've got tomorrow's papers at exactly 10:30 with full panel reaction. We've got the most amazing panel tonight. And this email has come in from Howard, who says, "Hi, Mark. After all you've said so far in the first hour of the programme, I know I'm going to love your take at 10. Bring it on." Well, Howard, you're absolutely right, because in my take at 10, straight after the news, lockdown-loving authoritarian Remainer Jeremy Hunt is our new Chancellor and de facto Prime Minister. Welcome to hell. I'm not pulling my punches. Lots to get through in the next hour, but first the headlines with Ray Addison.
Thanks, Mark. Here's the latest from the GB Newsroom. The Prime Minister has announced yet another mini-budget U-turn, but says she isn't resigning. Liz Truss chose to reverse the government's plan to scrap the planned rise in corporation tax. It came shortly after sacking Kwasi Kwarteng as Chancellor and replacing him with former Foreign Secretary Jeremy Hunt. Ms Truss says she's still committed to her economic plan for growth.
I have acted decisively today because my priority is ensuring our country's economic stability. As Prime Minister, I will always act in the national interest. This is always my first consideration. I want to be honest, this is difficult, but we will get through this storm, and we will deliver the strong and sustained growth that can transform the prosperity of our country for generations to come.
Well, the Shadow Chancellor thinks it's more than difficult. Rachel Reeves says the trickle-down economics of the Tory party no longer work.
The partial U-turn today does not reverse the whole budget, which is what is needed. The government needs to go back to the drawing board, not just picking out individual measures. Another change in who is running the Treasury, another Tory Chancellor, isn't the answer to the challenges that we face as a country.
In other news, the National Gallery in London says the Vincent van Gogh painting targeted by climate activists is now back on display. 2 Just Stop Oil campaigners threw cans of tomato soup over the sunflower's portrait in protest against fossil fuels. They then glued themselves to the wall. They've since been arrested for criminal damage and aggravated trespass. The Met Police says the painting was undamaged as it's behind glass. 14 people have been killed in an explosion at a coal mine in northern Turkey. According to reports, 49 miners have been trapped more than 300 metres below ground. The country's Disaster Management Authority says the cause of the blast is currently unknown. Local TV footage shows people being carried to ambulances with emergency personnel crowding the area. That's a developing story. We'll keep you up to date here on GB News. The TV and film star Robbie Coltrane has died at the age of 72. The Scottish-born actor won 3 BAFTAs for his portrayal of Fitz in the 90s TV drama Cracker, but he's probably best remembered for his role as Hagrid in the Harry Potter films. The actor Stephen Fry said he'll be dreadfully missed. On TV, online and on DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Back now to Mark Dolan Tonight.
Many thanks, Ray. Welcome to Mark Dolan Tonight and a government in crisis special. Lockdown-loving authoritarian Remainer Jeremy Hunt is our new Chancellor and de facto Prime Minister. Welcome to hell. Find out more in my Take at 10 in just 1 minute. We've got tomorrow's papers at exactly 10:30 sharp with full panel reaction. And my Mark Meets guest is former MP Neil Parish, chucked out of the House of Commons for watching pornography, but who has rebuilt his life. He tells his story very shortly indeed. So lots to get through, including my all-star panel, who are particularly feisty tonight. We've got lots to debate, and we'll start with this. Who runs Britain? The Prime Minister? Her cabinet? Not anymore. Watching this political and economic soap opera play out over the last few weeks, it's clear the lead actors are the media, disgruntled backbenchers and the markets. Now, I will grant you that the international bond markets are not partisan, but with the comments of global bodies like the International Monetary Fund, who immediately attacked the mini-budget, it strikes me that there's an agenda to put Britain in its place. This little island, which had the temerity to leave the European Union and challenge centre-left social democratic financial orthodoxy, is getting a little too big for its boots. And most media commentators seem uneasy with the idea of Britain being a low-tax economy, a global hub that attracts investment. Press and broadcast journalists were full of glee as they reported the crash in the pound straight after the mini-budget, with The Economist magazine demonstrating a vintage example of Britain bashing, with this front cover showing Britain as a pathetic little wooden boat sinking in the sea. Talking Britain down has become a habit now at home and abroad. Liz Truss dared to think big for this country and for our economy, to move the dial and wean us off our addiction to the crack cocaine of tax and spend, all fuelled by the printing of empty money. Yes, we're facing massive economic headwinds, but it's my view that we are in a dire political crisis too, with a perfectly able and experienced politician in Liz Truss literally unable to do her job and fulfil the mandate upon which she was elected by her party's own membership. Everything in this so-called controversial budget was something she said she was going to do from day one. Don't get me wrong, Truss's press conference today was a more painful watch than the movie Cats. And now the claws are out for Liz Truss, someone who entered number 10 as a big beast of the jungle, but may leave it a pussycat. So who runs Britain? Well, yes, it's the markets and the press by the looks of it. But most concerningly, the person that now really runs Britain is new Chancellor Jeremy Hunt. Absolved of any connection to the current economic crisis, he has supreme political authority. He will be the knight in shining armour that reverses the clock on all of these proposed changes and becomes the flag bearer for business as usual, in the pocket of the press and the markets, spoon-feeding them what they want to hear on a daily basis, as Britain descends further into economic mediocrity. Jeremy Hunt is now arguably the most powerful person in the cabinet, ahead even of Liz Truss. And why is that such a worry? Well, because whilst he's an experienced politician, he showed his true colours during the pandemic, praising China's lockdown strategy, pushing for vaccine mandates, and wanting anyone with the virus to be taken out of their homes and placed into 2 weeks of isolation. Alongside independent sage, Hunt was the highest profile political voice in support of zero COVID, which would have been a catastrophe for Britain. And now he gets the second most important job in government. Check this out from Bernie Spoforth, a political commentator who rages, Jeremy Hunt wants people to wear masks even when they have a common cold. This is now authoritarian Britain, where you will do as you are told or else. What an utter disgrace. This lockdown-loving globalist Remainer is the opposite of everything Liz Truss stands for. He's Keir Starmer's stunt double or worse. Why has Truss done this? With this appointment, the PM has effectively cancelled herself. What was she thinking? Hunt is not good. Hunt is not the man for this job, and it's a worry that he's got it. Reacting to that and all of the big stories of the day are my all-star panel. So let's start with Gina Miller, if I can. Gina, your reaction to Jeremy Hunt stepping into the Treasury?
I'm absolutely stunned by your diatribe again. But anyway, I'll answer your question. Jeremy Hunt is not who he pretends to be. I think if you look back at what he said when he was running against Boris Johnson in his leadership 2019, he was talking about cutting corporation tax to 12.5%. What he would have done would have been worse than this mini budget. And that was at a time when interest rates and inflation weren't where they are now. So he's not a fiscally responsible person. I mean, I think what she's done is, Liz Truss, she's gone and looked in every single cupboard to find somebody. And the only person she could find was Jeremy Hunt, because everybody else is either hiding because they're so disgraced by this Conservative government and her leadership, that literally he was the last person she could find, because he's popped up from nowhere and he has no credentials to actually be Chancellor. He's been disastrous in every single post he's actually ever held. I mean, the junior doctors went on strike under their pay contract, which they would never have done if it wasn't for him. He is the least... I mean, I failed to find words of how he could possibly bring any stability to the markets. I mean, the markets, when he was announced, didn't actually react in a positive way. The pound is now at 1.11. It will go lower. I just cannot fathom why would you go from being in a fire to a furnace by appointing him as Chancellor. It is baffling beyond belief.
We need a klaxon on this show because Gina Miller and I agree on something. What do you think, Rebecca Jane? I know you had strong views about COVID measures, and Jeremy Hunt's judgment, in my view, in relation to COVID was sorely wanting. This guy has been supportive of China's zero COVID policies, and a cursory glance at what's happening in China now will demonstrate how disastrous that policy was.
Yeah, I think he's absolutely mentally unstable and not fit for the job. Because anybody that thought that that was ever a good idea is clearly not on the planet that we were living on. We keep talking about his thing about experience. Just because he's been there doesn't make him good. I can sit in a car for the next year. It doesn't make me a Formula One driver. He doesn't need to... He doesn't, though. Like, he's now in the second most important job in this country. And it's just, if you didn't think worse of Liz Truss, now She's done even worse than before. And honestly, we're in for worse times. You're absolutely correct. The markets will crash even further. The pound will go down even further because we look completely and utterly incompetent and we are the absolute laughingstock of the world.
We've lost all our credibility. On the world stage, we've lost it.
Here we go again, more Britain bashing.
No.
National pastime.
No, actually, we have. And the thing is, we have to get it back. That's the problem. We don't have...
We can't with the Conservatives in power. We can't. And the problem is, part of me thinks call a general election for crying out loud and stop us from this pain. However, then we've got another bunch of morons waiting in the wings. So what on earth do we do? I don't actually even know.
Gina, you can't tell me that a Labour government wouldn't be more terrifying to the international bond markets than this Tory one.
Well, the markets wouldn't be as shocked. At least they'd know there was a party that didn't have mutiny going on within it. Because, I mean, you've got even people like Suella Braverman, who apparently, out of the Home Office, has been running her own leadership challenge, using our public money instead of actually doing policy. She's been running her own campaign. I mean, there's mutiny in every part of the Conservative Party.
A Labour government would spend more money than this Tory government, though.
Well,
so let's not have none of
them. I'm not a great fan for lots of different reasons. And as a true fair party, what I'm actually more interested in is that how do we actually clean up politics so we get better people in politics? And I'm not saying that I'm particularly happy with where we are. But what I do know is that for people who are deciding between heating and eating, who are actually trying to decide how they can feed their children, we need stability. And this government is not giving us stability. It is not about politics. It's not about right and left. It's actually about right and wrong. And it is wrong that we've got politicians who are not thinking about people at this time. That's what's wrong. And all of this is absolute nonsense. And it's all playing with people's lives. People are going to die this winter because of this incompetence. That's what the bottom line is. And that's why I think it's unforgivable that people are talking about
who is talking at the hands of a government that's underwriting the energy bills of every household in the country. People are going to die. Under a government that offers the highest tax burden since the 1950s.
Mark, look at the data. Look at the waiting list. Look at the fact that it's actually just because it's average bills of £2,500. That's still twice. That's still another 200% on what they were paying before.
And their mortgages, and inflation, and food prices.
6% mortgages.
Did you speak out against the lockdowns in which the Treasury borrowed £500 billion to pay healthy people to stay at home?
I have lots of problems with the lockdown.
Businesses?
I have lots of problems with COVID and lockdown, and it'll all come out in the report. And I think everyone should probably read Kate Bingham's book, which will come out soon. There was a huge amount. This is about incompetence. Is this the bottom line? Is that we have incompetent politicians who are not doing things for the people of this country. And I'm not interested in which party they belong to. I want them to think about people first, not about themselves.
Well, I think you think about economic growth first, because that's how you look after everyone in our society. Emma Wolf, briefly, before I get to Neil Parish.
No, I'm intrigued at why Jeremy Hunt has agreed to become Chancellor. I mean, why does he want to associate himself with a failing administration?
Because his career's over.
In the dying days of this administration. Is this a tactical move by him in order to be in position to move into number 10, to move next door? I simply don't understand why he's done this in literally the dying days of Liz Truss's premiership.
Emma Wolf, Gina Miller and Rebecca Jane. What a dream team panel. Well, they are live and uninterrupted from 10:30, reacting to tomorrow's front pages, and it's all Truss. Can she cling on? There you go, a developing story. Ex-Tory MP Jerry Hayes tells me on this programme he thinks that Liz Truss could be gone by Sunday, and if not early next week. Astonishing stuff. Well, we'll be here on GB News on air covering every moment and every minutiae of this story as it develops. But it's time now for this.
That's an intriguing idea.
It's time now for Mark Meets, in which I speak to the biggest names in the world of politics, showbiz, sport, business and beyond. Tonight, Neil Parish, a British farmer and politician, not a set of job titles you often hear together. Neil served as Member of Parliament for Tiverton and Honiton from 2010. As a member of the Conservative Party, he was previously a member of the European Parliament for South West England, and he chaired the Environment, Food and Rural Affairs Select Committee from 2015 until his resignation from the House of Commons after admitting watching pornography in the chamber. His departure triggered a by-election which was won by the Liberal Democrats. In an interview with LBC in June of this year, Neil said that he had experienced suicidal thoughts after the incident and thought the police had very kindly and rightly confiscated his guns so he wouldn't act on those dark thoughts. Well, I'm pleased to say that after a very challenging time, Neil Parish has reflected on his poor judgment and his behaviour and has moved on from this, rebuilt his life, and is now a highly in-demand commentator on all matters politics. And he's happy to talk about farming too. Neil Parish, welcome to the show.
And thank you very much, Mark, for having me on.
Listen, I think you got out of the Commons at exactly the right time.
There's part of me that says, I went through a coalition government, I went through a small majority, then a minority government with Theresa May, which every night we tried to get a deal through on Brexit, remember? And my constituents used to say, you should have voted for that. Well, I did. I voted for every combination to get us out, but we couldn't. And now my colleagues are facing in the House of Commons something horrendous because, naturally, Liz Truss built herself up into this, new Margaret Thatcher. She was not for turning. And, of course, the trouble is she's had to turn. And now, our economy and we're being run and dominated by the markets. And she's having to U-turn. And I think that's going to be her biggest problem.
We could debate, the mini-budget to death. It's been obviously analysed to within an inch of its life. What's your view of her political judgment in the last few days?
I think actually firing her Chancellor, I think, it's no good. Kwasi, he actually did her bidding as well as his own bidding. And I think this idea that you can dispense with your Chancellor and then I can carry on as Prime Minister. Remember when David Cameron left after the referendum? He went partly because the party was going to have George Osborne's head on a platter, only metaphorically speaking. And so I wouldn't possibly comment. But like I said, that's why David Cameron went as well. And I think this is her problem. And I think, Boris was almost considered to be too loyal to his ministers.
That was his great weakness, is that he couldn't fire people.
No, exactly.
Even Matt Hancock, when he was caught on CCTV.
Whereas I think,
A crime, by the way, far more egregious than yours, in my view.
Well, yeah, I think once you've admitted your sins and you've resigned, I think you live with it and you move on. So, like I said, I don't want to make judgment on others. Others can make judgment on me. So I think it's key now. I think, if Liz Truss is to survive, she's got to raise her game because, today's press conference was just horrendous. I watched it on my phone and it was horrendous because, there was no... if she was a Margaret Thatcher, Margaret would have come out with some real sort of, gut things. There is nothing in there from Liz Truss because she's not a true right-winger, and that's the problem.
And she was dressed in black and she cut the figure of somebody attending her own funeral. It was like a wake, wasn't it? My concern was that she didn't own it, that she didn't own the mini-budget, she didn't own the fact that this budget was the creation of herself and Kwasi Kwarteng, as you've suggested, that she hasn't owned this agenda. She's neither fish nor fowl now because she's not going to have these low tax policies, at least in relation to corporation tax and the upper rate. So, policy-wise, she's all over the shop. And she doesn't seem now to have that conviction in her eyes that suggests she can keep leading.
You see, the thing is, too, she was the one who created this persona. This was the whole idea of a new government to actually, reduce taxes and actually change what the Conservatives were doing. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, she's had to completely reverse all of that. So, those right-wingers who put her on, because don't forget, she only just got on to the ballot for leadership. And that was put on by the right of the party.
And her performance was sluggish in the early rounds, wasn't
Exactly. And so, therefore, you see, they were expecting the Liz Truss that came out fighting and this new policy that came forward. Now, you see, those right-wingers that supported her don't like what she's done in the U-turns. The other MPs didn't support her in the first place. And that's why, you know, facing the House of Commons and the party, I think it was Winston Churchill, didn't he? He said, over there are my opponents, behind me are my enemies. Well, I mean, as Liz Truss actually, you know, stands, if she's there next Wednesday, she will know that behind her are not exactly enemies, but they are people now who actually fear for their own seats. And also, you know, we must remember that people are suffering for cost of living crisis, all of these things. They're worried about making ends meet. They're worried about their mortgages going up, because don't forget, some of the effects of the markets have actually driven mortgage rates up, and people are worried. I mean, somebody who actually looks and helps us in the house, she bought her own council house, she's facing higher interest rates, she's very worried. Everybody's worried. It's not just top earners, it's everybody who's now worried about where we're going.
Well, I think today was the day the music died, because I watched the press conference as well. I was expecting a bravura performance. I think she's been quite good at PMQs since she became Prime Minister. I think her first outing was very impressive, and I think she beat Keir Starmer. But she had a haunted look in her eyes. She looks like she's had the wind knocked out of her sails. And I actually just don't know where she goes from here. I mean, Jerry Hayes, ex-Tory MP, suggesting she could be out by Sunday or even early next week. Do you think she's currently considering her position?
I think she will if enough people go to see her. We don't know. There's always rumours about how many letters have gone into the 1922 committee. Only Sir Graham Brady will know that. And I suspect probably not as many as is rumoured. But I think in the end, you see, if you can't actually up your game and drive the party forward and the country forward, have confidence that the markets will actually lend this country the money it needs to pull us through. And of course, you see, the problem she had with her unfunded tax cuts was she didn't come clean with her MPs as to where the public spending was going to be cut. And of course, what's happened is she knows full well from the Chief Whip that she cannot get those cuts through. And that is why she's in the position she's in. She's caught between, you know, a rock and a hard place.
Which is a political misjudgment, because, I mean, I think there are sound economic arguments for that mini budget. It's just that it needed the approval and the sign-off of the Office for Budget Responsibility. That didn't happen. It was a perfect storm, really, wasn't it? They wanted to quickly announce energy support for household energy bills.
That's right. And that was right.
The right thing to do. But then with that, they thought, oh, let's have the full budget and let's you know, skip the OBR and they'll catch up with our figures.
But you see, she made a big thing of actually ignoring the Office of Budget Responsibility, of ignoring the Bank of England. And yes, they can be too pessimistic, let's be blunt.
But you see, modelling has not always been accurate.
Not always been accurate.
We know Bank of England asleep at the wheel with inflation.
But you see, it's no good actually then having sort of taken them on, then having to go, you know, the Kwasi had to go, didn't he, back and actually talk to the Office of Budget Responsibility, having ignored them. You know, we have got to now find out exactly how we're going to balance the books. All of these things are now actually taking place, but after the event.
Now, let's imagine you're in the House of Commons and you're not watching anything racy on your phone. You're attending to the political moment. What would your thoughts be and what would your actions be? Would you be submitting a letter to Graham Brady?
Probably not just at this stage, because I think we have got to see where she will finally land. But I think the problem we've got is that, you see, what will happen with the MPs, unless she can up her game, unless we can get that real drive there as to where it's going to take us. You know, MPs are venal in the end. They are very worried about their own seats, and naturally so. And in the meantime, like I said, the country is worrying about how they're going to survive the winter. You know, I want to see more food produced in this country. I want to see a good environment.
Absolutely.
All of these things that we
always
fought
been a
for.
great champion for the countryside.
And you know, and having good, healthy food with good animal welfare. You know, these are the things that people want to be able to afford food, afford energy, and they don't want. See, the Tory party at the moment, all we're doing is talking to ourselves, and meanwhile the country is suffering. And the trouble is, you know, when the election comes, I mean, don't forget, I was a local councillor between 92 and 97, district council and county council. And when I went round, people said, we like you, Neil, you do a good job, but we're not voting Conservative. And you see, every MP between 92 and 97 had a different idea of how to run the government, right? Well, when it came to the general election, most of them lost, irrespective of what position they took. And if the MPs, you know, and the party doesn't pull itself round, the public will be merciless, and why shouldn't they be if we're not fit to govern? We still can be fit to govern. We can still make it, because as you rightly said in this programme, the Labour Party will spend more, borrow more, but the Tory party at the moment, we're not really showing our true colours, are we? And who are we? What are we? And I ask that, you know, in all sincerity, because, you know, could you describe what the Tory party is at the moment? And can the public actually understand where we're going?
And I'm getting a lot of emails from viewers saying they would like a new political party that's properly conservative. So that's a conversation for another day. You made a mistake, a misjudgment, and I know that you've been on a journey with that. I was shocked to hear that you had suicidal thoughts. How is your mental health now? Have you got closure with what happened earlier this year?
I have, actually, and I think the last sort of few weeks in particular, I've accepted, you know, the mistakes that I made. I don't want to remake them. I want to actually help with, you know, fair share, delivering food that most need it, with the environment, with agriculture, all of those things that I've been involved with all of my life through the European Parliament and through Parliament. And so, you know, I want to be able to offer things to people that I hope that can be help people, and I hope they can forgive me for what I did, and I need to get on, because I've still got a lot in my brain where I feel that I can be useful to society, and especially those that need it most.
Most certainly. I wish you well, and I hope you'll come back and see us again soon.
I like coming on GB News. I like the debate. I've been very interested this evening watching it all before I came on. You've been quite kind to me. I did wonder what was going to happen where there was full-scale debates going on just now. Not that I probably could have joined in if I needed to. So thank you very much.
Well, look, do come back and see us, and keep bigging up those farmers, because British agriculture is world-class.
Yeah.
Lots more to get through. Next up, it's the papers with my panel. See you in 2.
Weekday afternoons on GB News, we've got the whole of the UK covered. From 12 to 3, it's GB News Day with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Gloria Di Piero. You'll get the very latest on everything that's been going on across our great nation.
And from 3 till 6, watch out for GB News Live with me, Patrick Christys. I'm not here to mess around with all the biggest topics and guests. You will always be up to date. GB News Day and GB News Live from 12 p.m.
Only on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
It's 10:30. It's time for the papers, which, of course, are dominated by one story and one story alone. Chloe, where would you like to start? Let's have the Daily Mail, if I can. And we have the following. How much more can she, brackets, and the rest of us take another day of barely believable Tory chaos? Her first 38 days in office have proved some of the most shambolic in British political history, write the Mail. But today, Liz Truss's 39th day in Downing Street saw the chaos, confusion and flip-flopping reach extraordinary new extremes. OK, next up, we have the Telegraph. Truss clings to power after axing Kwarteng. Tory rebels plot to oust the PM within days as she abandons key tax-cutting policy, which is, of course, the planned reversal of the cut to the planned reversal of the increase in corporation tax. OK, next up, we've got the Times. Truss fights for survival. Hunt replaces Kwarteng as Chancellor. U-turn on corporation tax. Britain facing a financial storm. The Eye, weekend. Tory MPs tell Truss it's over. Liz Truss is clinging to power after 5.5 weeks as Prime Minister. Her decision to sack Kwasi Kwarteng, a new budget U-turn and a disastrous press conference leave Tory MPs aghast and plotting her removal from office. One senior minister in the government tells The Eye it's over, whilst another ex-minister says it's an utter shambles, she has to go. And there are no more safe Tory seats. What a damning sentence.
I can tell you that.
There you go. 45p to P45. Kwarteng is fired after 38 days in office and 3 weeks of turmoil.
Boom, boom.
Nicely done. OK, those puns are better than mine. Let's have a look at the FT weekend. Truss sacks Kwarteng in bid to save premiership. Economic strategy shredded after U-turn on corporation tax. Hunt named as Chancellor, but gilts sell-off and Tory MPs plot. The one thing uniting her party is a lack of trust in Truss, writes Robert Shrimsley in the FT. Now we've got The Independent next. Truss battles for survival. Tories say leader could be told the game is up within days. Echoes there of the comments of ex-Tory MP Jerry Hayes, who spoke to me earlier on the show. Next up, we've got The Guardian newspaper. A day of chaos. Kwarteng sacked, replaced by Jeremy Hunt. Truss performs yet another U-turn and drops planned cut in corporation tax. I've got The Express. Vultures circling, but Truss is not for quitting. Beleaguered Liz Truss was battling to save her premiership today after sacrificing her Chancellor to fend off plotters. The PM axed her closest ally, Kwasi Kwarteng, and gave centrist, that's one word for him, Jeremy Hunt, his job in a desperate bid to regain credibility in the financial markets. And last but not least, the Daily Star. Tip of the iceberg. How long can wet lettuce Liz remain? She axes Kwasi, but refuses to quit number 10. Bookies lower odds on the Daily Star veg lettuce actually outlasting the PM.
They've got this lettuce going.
It's brilliant.
And
the Liz Truss lettuce.
It's literally who will last longer, the lettuce or Liz Truss.
There you go. Salad days. Those are your front pages. And I'm delighted to say we've got Emma Wolfe reacting to the big stories of the day, Gina Miller and Rebecca Jane. So look, folks, there is only one story in town. A day of chaos, writes The Guardian. Vultures circling, but Truss is not for quitting. Although I do feel that talk of Liz Truss being asked to resign is a developing story, RJ. Jerry Hayes there suggesting even by Sunday she could be gone.
Sounds far-fetched. It'd be lovely, wouldn't it, really, in so many ways? But again, like, who would replace her? That's the problem. Do I think she's going to last? No. I think it is only a matter of time. But I don't think it's going to be that soon. I really think we've probably got another wave of nonsense, maybe even a couple of months.
The issue is if they're going to replace the leader, Gina Miller, it needs to be now, doesn't it? Is there an argument for lancing the boil?
Do you know, I actually tweeted lancing the boil yesterday. We're on the same page again. There's something weird happening.
Ring that klaxon.
Right, yeah, you know, this is like Full House. It's a full house of no confidence, no credibility. I mean, it doesn't really matter where the papers stand. Everyone's saying the same thing. And my view is that every day she stays, the more damage it does. And the longer it takes, we know in markets, you know, it takes longer to recover. So I think it's got to be lancing the boil. I absolutely agree with you. I really do think we need a general election rather than another leader, because I just don't see how they can credibly put somebody else in when it's not the country and when they don't have a mandate. Because actually, it was Boris Johnson's mandate, it wasn't Liz Truss's mandate or whoever comes after. I really think we need to go to the country
But
now.
another election would be a disaster for the economy right now. And you're economically minded.
I'm not sure
can
it
you
would,
imagine
actually.
the market reaction if an election?
Yeah, no, I do. No, I do. And looking at the modelling, if there was, I mean, I don't think I really don't think it's before Christmas, because I think we need to wait out this year. But I think come the new year, there is a modelling that shows if there's a general election at that stage, and we've got the year ahead, which will be tougher. Next year is actually going to be tougher than this year for lots of different reasons. So I think, having a stable government in place where there's not infighting will satisfy the markets. And we need competency and credibility, and that's what's lacking at the moment in our political system. So, but I think the timing is really bad. I'm in two minds about this. In one mind, I think every day there's more damage being done, but then we're going into a really tough winter and more strikes. We've got so many things coming along. I'm not sure that we're ready for another election. True and Fair Party, we'd love an election tomorrow, but I really don't think it's right now. I can see it in a few months. I don't think it'll be this weekend. I mean, as Ajay says, who do they replace her with? I mean, it can't be Rishi. Oh, no. I mean, it can't be. And I don't know who else. I really, I'm
not
struggling.
Sure why you say that. I'm not sure
why
can't it be Rishi Sunak?
It could well be Rishi Sunak and Penny Mordaunt. That was the sort of dream ticket that was being reported yesterday.
The idea is that between them, they would
I'm not saying
they would represent 2/3 of support within the parliamentary party.
They were very popular amongst the members, Penny Mordaunt, and very popular amongst MPs, Rishi Sunak.
I think the parliamentary party.
I think it would be a relief for everybody concerned if it wasn't Liz Truss anymore.
How would the country react to a new prime minister? This
No, it's ludicrous. It is absolutely ludicrous. She's the fourth leader of the Conservative Party in 6 years. They've thrown everybody out. They've thrown everybody under the bus, or as Boris pretty much threw himself. I mean, it just bodies everywhere. But this instability can't go on, can it? It really can't. And of course it won't be this weekend, because letters will be going in. I think lots of letters will be going into Sir Graham Brady this weekend. I think there will be a delegation, the grand deal. Someone goes to her sometime next week, and says, you've got to leave now. You've got to, get your bags.
But I think another reason for an election is the fact that it's a 97 moment again, because the Conservative Party itself is so divided. It almost needs to go it needs to go to the country rather than looking inwards.
How can we have a general election? That'll be months of campaigning. How can we
That's
go
what I'm
on
saying in the new year
with
rather
no
than
one
now.
governing?
No, not saying right now, but I think
and who will govern meanwhile?
No. At the moment, I think she needs to go, and it needs to be somebody else, and that person then has to go to the country.
I can't see how an election is in the national interest at the moment, RJ. What do you think?
Oh, I think it's all a load of rubbish, and we're... Hang on, am I allowed to say screwed on the telly these days?
You can say whatever you like. You won't be censored here.
We're screwed.
So what's
either way?
So, right, here's my issue. So we're talking about Rishi and Penny coming into play. However, we've just gone through the leadership election for those people, right? We've all they've decided on Liz Truss. Everybody backed Liz Truss, thought it was absolutely wonderful. A couple of weeks later, they absolutely hate her. The problem is the Conservatives. It's not a case of her, Boris, Rishi, any of them. They're all a load of rubbish. Get rid of the lot, because you can get them two in. But in another 6 weeks' time, we're all going to be moaning about something else. This is worse than Boris ever went through. I absolutely was not his biggest fan.
No, I think, having seen the last 5 weeks, I think Rishi Sunak and Penny Mordaunt would make a real... I mean, I'm not particularly fans. I did, like you, I supported Rishi Sunak at the beginning. I've always known, I'll just repeat it, I've always known that Liz Truss would be an absolute disaster. She's never been... She's one of those people, and you see them in your own workplace, she's out of her depth. She's not...
It's called the Peter Principle.
She's out of her depth. And it's not about her years. I know she's had a lot of experience, as in miles on the clock. But as you say, it's like sitting in a car, like me, sitting in a car and claiming I can drive when I clearly can't.
But isn't this patronising? I mean, if you're a man, these comments would sound quite sexist to me, that this little lady can't handle the big job.
No, it's nothing to do with her gender. It's nothing to do with her gender. She's out of her depth. No, I don't even being a woman.
What about all those trade deals in the Trade Department?
Why did you even bring up her being a woman?
What about standing up to Vladimir Putin?
She didn't. He doesn't even know who she is. She claims she stood up to Putin.
She's trying to make a name for herself. It's not real. It's not authentic.
Well, can I make a different point? Can I make a different point? Is that actually Liz Truss hasn't changed. People just didn't listen to what she was saying, because if you go back to 2010, Look at the book she co-authored, Unchained Britannica,
Oh,
Unchained.
yeah.
Go all the way back. Look at the things she said. She actually has been consistent in her plans and in her vision. People just didn't listen. None of this is actually a surprise. She's doing what she said she would do when she came, if she got to power. So she's not the one to blame in an odd way. It's the fact that people who were stupid enough to put her there, because she has not changed. But getting back to where we are right now, we're in a rock and a hard place. I don't think there's any easy way out. I think the fact that the Tories, when you talk about Rishi, when you talk whoever, a lot of these people were in the governments when things were going wrong, so they are complicit from that point of view. We need to go to the people. You cannot ignore the electorate and keep fighting within the party. The electorate are the people who elect people in our representative democracy. We need to go back and ask people.
I actually think even if there was a Labour government, I think that at a time of national emergency, economic crisis like this, I just think going to the country doesn't seem like it's in the national interest.
I would love a government of national unity, because I think we are in serious crisis. Unfortunately, I think that's even more unrealistic. But that would be my number one option, would be for governments to come together while we're going through this crisis. It's not going to happen, but I'd love to
I've got a couple of really interesting and indicative emails to read out, which I think will influence and colour our conversation. Lance has said, Mark, the only upside from everything going on is Nigel Farage possibly making a political comeback. Also, we've got this from Henry, who said, Mark, I really agreed with your monologue earlier, but dear, oh dear, where did you get your panellists from? Particularly Gina. They're the perfect representation of the corporate media, the establishment and puppet masters globalists who are destabilising the country because their globalist friend Rishi Sunak didn't get the job.
Globalist friend. I don't want Rishi to be.
Globalist friend.
Is this a Remain plot?
What?
A Remain plot to reverse Brexit?
No, because you can't reverse
and I'm not even going to
Brexit.
say how I voted, but I think...
To dilute it.
Gina and I might
to
be
sell
on
Northern Ireland down the river with the protocol.
You think that's got anything to do with what's going on in Westminster? Then you're living in cloud cuckoo land. It's got nothing to do with that.
To be called a globalist, wow, I'm a single mother.
You're well-travelled, aren't you? How about this in another interesting one from Kamal, who says... the Conservative Party is on course to destroy all it stands for in the eyes of the public through self-inflicted chaos. I think they should just leave her to do the job and rally round her. The plan B is a Labour government to take over. So there you go. That's a good question posed by Kamal. Would you rather have a chaotic Conservative government or a majority Labour government? Rebecca Jane.
I'm bringing back UKIP and getting rid of everyone.
There you go. I tell you something, she's not pulling her punches tonight. It's obviously going to dominate for the next few days. Do you think, just on a very human level, Emma, do you think that the Prime Minister is now considering her position privately?
I think she must be. I mean, I think she's fairly... I get the sense she's pretty thick-skinned, otherwise I don't think she would have been able to survive this. But I think at this point, and, we see the photos of her... all over the media by now. Look, it's pure speculation on my part. I've never felt any, in a way that I feel that I would get on with Boris Johnson. I feel that I would understand, I get him. I know he's a vile man in many ways. Liz Truss is someone that I cannot even understand her in any sense. So I don't know, but I think she must be surely considering her position at the moment.
Tom Harwood, Gina Miller, pointed out on Twitter today, of course, brilliant GB News presenter, that it was Boris Johnson who was unseated as Prime Minister for being 5 points behind Labour in the polls.
I know, she's now minus 23, is it?
Something of that.
I mean, it's like one of the worst. It is quite extraordinary. I think one poll I saw actually put her below Jeremy Corbyn, which is quite something.
Yeah.
Wow. Whatever we are, wherever we are, it has to be about the country, and that's where I'm struggling. I don't see how we get to a place which creates stability and credibility, calms the markets. There are no easy choices, unfortunately, and that's the saddest thing of where we stand at the moment.
Well, he is on the back benches, so next up, is it time to consider bringing Boris back? What do you think about that? Mark at gbnews.uk. Could we rule this out? If Truss goes, who should be our next Prime Minister? I don't think Gina will get what she wants, which is an election. But if Truss goes, who would you like to see replace her? Can you believe we're having this conversation? But of course we are. So we'll discuss that more from the papers after this. Plus, Just Stop Oil, up to their old tricks. And Robbie Coltrane remembered. See you shortly.
Weekday afternoons on GB News, we've got the whole of the UK covered. From 12 to 3, it's GB News Day with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Gloria Di Piero. You'll get the very latest on everything that's been going on across our great nation.
And from 3 till 6, watch out for GB News Live with me, Patrick Christys. I'm not here to mess around with all the biggest topics and guests. You will always be up to date. GB News Day and GB News Live from 12 p.m.
Only on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and tune-in apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Look, lots of people not happy about the arrival of Jeremy Hunt in the cabinet. Dear Mark, what is going on? I will now vote for Reform UK. Jeremy Hunt, what universe is mistrust living in? If Jeremy Hunt had his way, we would still be sealed in our homes. What he's done is always supported China's position. I absolutely give up. The Tories are making it clear they want Labour to take over. Well, look, what about the blonde bombshell making a glorious return? Boris Johnson back to the top job. Emma Wolf, what do you think? Outside bet.
He just made $150,000 the other night for a 30-minute speech in Colorado, then went off for a private holiday with his family. He should have been in Parliament, by the way. He should have been there attending. Parliament was having that rare thing. They were actually sitting. And he wasn't there. And he's still the MP for, what is it, Uxbridge and somewhere, Henley?
Yeah.
So that's interesting, that we are paying his wages while he is absolutely raking it in.
However,
that's his big plan.
His time in office.
Make enough money to buy a big house in London.
Right.
I don't think, why would he want to come back?
Well, his ego and his legacy.
And inherit the mess at the moment? Maybe in a few years I wouldn't rule him out at all. But no, not at the moment. He won't want to come back to this.
I mean, notwithstanding Partygate, Gina Miller, the Boris Johnson years are starting to look like the glory days, the golden era.
Oh, is that what you think? OK, I don't think if you go down most doorsteps, that's not quite what they think. But he's definitely not as bad as Truss. Two wrongs don't make a right. This is what my grandma used to say. I just don't think it's right time, place. You can't have Boris back when he was an exemplar of breaking the rules, the system, the law. You just
and
can't
fulfilling the wishes of the voting public.
What's that got to do with him coming back?
Honouring the Brexit vote. That's his great legacy, isn't it?
Brexit's not done.
He got Brexit done.
He didn't get it done.
But what does that mean?
He did not get it
He
done.
did, because
what does that mean? What does that mean?
We left the European Union and we achieved a tariff-free trade deal with Europe. Which they said wasn't possible. He got rid of the backstop, which they said was impossible because it was a treaty. He defied the political odds and he got Brexit done.
Well, No, he didn't get it done because it's not done. And
We're
it's
out.
going on and on.
He got it through. He didn't get it done. He didn't get it done.
And also, that's got, no, it's not semantics. No, you're the one bringing in semantics.
I think to get Brexit done would be to make a success of it and to achieve all the things that Brexit promised. I don't think he's achieved that.
What I was going to say, getting Brexit done means actually knowing what you do with the freedoms once you got them. They haven't figured that bit out yet, and he didn't have a clue about that.
What do we think about Boris? What's he thinking right now? I guess he's laughing all the way to the bank, isn't he?
Oh, he's absolutely laughing. What he did, right, imagine a game of golf, Mark, right? Boris has lined up all the tees and Liz Truss is knocking the balls into nowhere land. He started all of this mess and now she's completing the nonsense. So he's got a lot to blame and no, under no circumstances should he come anywhere near the country. Carry on staying wherever he is.
OK, well, there you go. Very clear unanimity on that one. But what do you think? Was it a mistake getting rid of Boris in the first place? Just Stop Oil protesters are in the papers as well. They've thrown a can of soup all over the priceless Sunflowers by Van Gogh. And now we all believe in the right to protest, but what if they had destroyed a priceless piece of art? I'm delighted to say that this particular work of genius is intact because I think it had a glass cover. But I don't like the optics of this, Gina Miller.
Absolutely not. I mean, I'm astonished. I mean, why soup in the first? It's puzzled me. Why soup?
Is it the Andy Warhol thing?
No.
There's no link with Andy Warhol.
This is the problem with these morons. They get so far-fetched with their ideas behind it that nobody actually understands what on earth they're protesting about. But if you read pages and pages, you'll actually understand what the soup is about. But I've read it and now I forgot.
What I don't like is...
It's horrible.
It's horrible to even see it.
Somebody can't afford a tin of soup or something along those extents. Either way, more mentally unstable people that belong in a facility and not in real world.
And where are the security at the National Gallery?
Well, there they are.
No. They've just gone in looking like normal people. The problem is, more people keep doing like this, more normal people will get
they're fairly
penalised.
idiotic to choose a painting that is covered in glass. I mean, I'm very relieved.
The optics of it are really disgusting and distressing, and I really think it's wrong. You have a right to protest.
Yeah.
This is not the way to do it.
This is not the way to do it. And there isn't a hierarchy of issues that justify mild terrorism, is there, Emma? You can't say, well, global warming is a bigger concern than child poverty. Otherwise, you could actually have this sort of direct action in relation to every policy.
It is shocking. It was shocking to see that. And I kind of exhaled with relief when your newsreader said it was not, because I didn't know. I had read about the painting.
But next time it will be a priceless work, won't it?
And the Sunflowers is so loved and so well known. And Van Gogh is such a kind of icon. I hate that word.
But it is, yeah.
But yeah, no, to throw... It just looked shocking to see it, actually.
Indeed, too right. However, they're also, aren't they, Gina, undermining their own argument? And that's the point. It's counterproductive because this is where the public check out with the issue and say, sorry, I'm not going to engage anymore.
I think this, not just in this particular occasion, I think you have to think carefully about how you campaign. I'd say as a campaigner, you have to take people with you. It's not always easy. Going to extremes when you're not having your voice heard, you have to choose the way you do it. And I think this is actually very negative rather than positive.
There you go. How about this? I'll give the last word to Dee. Dream team on your panel, straight out of Macbeth, more like. Have they actually bothered to look at inflation, rising interest rates and falling currencies across the globe?
We've been debating it for weeks on end.
There you go. Well, look, can I say that I love my panel tonight because I love a right old ding-dong. Three brilliant contributors to the show, Rebecca Jane, Gina Miller and Emma Wolf. Let's do it all again soon. Next time I'll bring personal armour and a bodyguard. Thanks for your company. We'll do it all again tomorrow at 9. Headliners is next.
Good evening. Alex Deakin here with your weekend weather update from the Met Office. The mixed picture continues. Sunshine and showers and a breezy day on Saturday. Sunday looking dry and bright for the most part before more wet and windy weather arrives from the southwest. A whole host of low-pressure systems and weather fronts drifting in from the Atlantic at the moment. They'll all bring bands of showers across the country over the next 24 to 36 hours. A couple of those bands sinking south this evening, but many places dry this evening, the main exception being across the Midlands and parts of Wales. And then later in the night, we'll see another band of quite heavy rain move across western Scotland and Northern Ireland. Ahead of that, could easily see some frost across eastern Scotland, but another pretty mild night with a lot of cloud across the south. a real mishmash again then on Saturday. Could be quite a wet start for Wales and northern England, but that rain should soon scoot away, lingering a little longer in northeast Scotland. Sunny spells will follow, but so will a whole host of showers. A zone of them crossing the Midlands late in the day, more for West Wales and southwest Scotland along with Northern Ireland. Quite a cool feeling day here. Blustery conditions on western coast, making it feel rather fresh. 16 or 17 the high in the southeast and East Anglia, where there will be plenty of showers through Saturday evening. And the showers continue throughout the night over northern England, Scotland and Northern Ireland. But it does turn a little drier across the south as we head into Sunday. And the showers over northern England, Northern Ireland should fade through the morning. And even across Scotland, actually, the showers tending to ease off as we go through Sunday. So many places actually dry and bright for most of Sunday, with some good spells of sunshine. And the wind's a little lighter as well. Temperatures 16, 17 in the south, 13 or 14 further north. The wind's starting to pick up in the southwest, however. And behind me here is a developing area of low pressure. That is moving in from the southwest and will bring some rain to Northern Ireland on Sunday evening. Wet and windy weather spreading everywhere during Sunday night.
Weekday afternoons on GB News, we've got the whole of the UK covered. From 12 to 3, it's GB News Day with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Gloria Di Piero. You'll get the very latest on everything that's been going on across our great nation.
And from 3 till 6, watch out for GB News Live with me, Patrick Christys. I'm not here to mess around with all the biggest topics and guests. You will always be up to date. GB News Day and GB News Live from 12 p.m.
Only on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and tune-in apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
I'm Ray Addison in the GB Newsroom. The Prime Minister has announced yet another mini-budget U-turn, but says she isn't resigning. Liz Truss chose to reverse the government's plan to scrap the planned rise in corporation tax. It came shortly after sacking Kwasi Kwarteng as Chancellor and replacing him with former Foreign Secretary Jeremy Hunt. Ms Truss says she's still committed to her economic plan for growth.
I have acted decisively today because my priority is ensuring our country's economic stability. As Prime Minister, I will always act in the national interest. This is always my first consideration. I want to be honest, this is difficult, but we will get through this storm and we will deliver the strong and sustained growth that can transform the prosperity of our country for generations to come.
Well, that's the view of the Prime Minister. However, Shadow Chancellor Rachel Reeves says the trickle-down economics of the Tory party no longer works.
The partial U-turn today does not reverse the whole budget, which is what is needed. The government needs to go back to the drawing board, not just picking out individual measures. Another change in who is running the Treasury, another Tory Chancellor, isn't the answer to the challenges that we face as a country.
London's National Gallery has put the Vincent van Gogh painting targeted by climate activists back on display. 2 Just Stop Oil campaigners threw cans of tomato soup over the sunflower's portrait earlier today in protest against fossil fuels. They also glued themselves to the wall. They've since been arrested for criminal damage and aggravated trespass. The Met Police says the painting was undamaged as it's behind glass. 22 people have been killed in an explosion at a coal mine in northern Turkey. Local TV footage shows people being carried to ambulances with emergency personnel crowding the area. The Turkish Interior Minister says over 100 miners were working on the site at the time of the blast. The cause of the explosion, which caused some areas to collapse, is not yet known. And the TV and film star Robbie Coltrane has died at the age of 72. The Scottish-born actor won 3 BAFTAs for his portrayal of Fitz in the 90s TV drama Cracker. He's probably best remembered for his role as Hagrid in the Harry Potter films, though. The actor Stephen Fry said he'll be dreadfully missed. On TV, online and on DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Time now for those headliners.
Hello and welcome to Headliners. I'm Andrew Doyle, and it's my pleasure to be in the company of the ever-glamorous Sajila Kershi and the softly spoken, self-proclaimed voice of a generation, Nick Dixon. And we're going to take you through Saturday's newspapers. But first, let's have a look at the front pages. And we're going to start with the Daily Mail. How much more can she take? This is, of course, a much beleaguered Liz Truss. This is going to be the theme of most of the front covers, I think you'll find. The Daily Telegraph is running with Truss clings to power after axing Kwarteng. She has, of course, sacked her Chancellor. We're going to be talking about that in one moment. The Independent, Truss battles for survival. A lot of people going with this picture of her looking forlorn. Of course, in reality, she's just checking her notes. The front page of The Guardian now has Day of Chaos. Very dramatic there. Financial Times runs with Truss sacks Kwarteng in bid to save Premiership. And The Times also leads with Truss fights for survival. Daily Express goes for another dramatic image, vultures circling, but Truss is not for quitting. Slight invocation of the precedent of Margaret Thatcher there. And finally, the Daily Star, tip of the iceberg. How long can wet lettuce, Liz, remain? That is, of course, their ongoing campaign to see if the lettuce they bought from Tesco will outsurvive Liz Truss. And those were your front pages. Well, we're going to kick off with the precarious position of the Prime Minister from Saturday's Times. Sajila, what are they saying?
So Liz Truss insists she won't resign after making Jeremy Hunt Chancellor. And I think I've been following this all day long on the TV. And she basically held her questions with the press.
Yep.
And literally only took 4. And it was like she was playing Russian roulette. Literally, like, I'm going to go for... and hoping that no one was going to shoot her.
Really?
And she didn't really answer any of the questions. But she's basically replaced Kwasi Kwarteng, who is in some corner somewhere crying,
yes,
probably singing Alanis Morissette.
That's what you do, isn't it, when you lose a job?
That's what you do. Yeah. And, so it's, she's basically saying kind of fighting talk, coming back. She doesn't think she's going to go. But let's not forget that yesterday, I think it was, that Kwasi said, we're here for another month.
Oh, he was very determined that he's staying on.
We didn't even last another day.
But that's how we knew. I mean, we knew he was gone for the chop because he was so determined.
Yeah. And in her very kind of like Eliza Doolittle voice that she has, she said, what I've done today is made sure that we have economic stability in the country. Has she really?
Nick, what do you think? Because, some would say that sacking a Chancellor after such a short period of time is a sign of desperation. What do you think?
It's not good, Andrew, definitely, and especially when you hire Jeremy Hunt as the replacement, Jeremy Hunt loves China. I mean, his plan for economic growth is to invade Taiwan, or as he calls it, the rightful province of China. You know how he loves China. During the lockdowns, he was saying we should copy China. Anyway, so Hunt is a terrible idea. But yeah, Truss is in obviously massive trouble. As Sajila said, she was asking for questions at the press conference, but none of them were good. Basically, it was like she went to the Telegraph thinking they might be sympathetic. They were like, why don't you resign? Then it was the Sun, why don't you resign? And it was like, Peston, why don't you resign and apologise? So she kept trying to get a good question, and it was not forthcoming. I think she's in massive trouble. The only way she can really recover, in my opinion, is some sort of Hail Mary, like some horrible escalation happens in the war, and she's seen to deal with it well or something. It would take
like
something...
the way that Margaret Thatcher regained popularity after the Falklands?
She needs a Falklands.
She needs a Falklands.
She needs one fast.
Well, I don't know.
So why did she invade, I don't know, Wales?
She kind of had a Falklands, because she went over those talks, didn't she, initially with Putin before he invaded, to try and talk him down, and then he invaded.
Yes.
And then the Queen, she went to meet her, and then she died, and then she killed our economy, and she nearly killed our pensions. So basically, everything she touched
not looking good. But this thing with
Kwarteng
as well, you kind of think, it's been, what's that? That'll be the fourth. Jeremy Hunt will be the fourth Chancellor this year. I mean, they are dropping like flies.
I mean, it's like Duracell battery advert.
It's not good.
Yeah.
So can she pull that? I mean, she was saying at the televised press conference today, she was saying the mission stays the same. But is that just doggedness? Is that wise? If the mission is clearly not working out for her, would she be wise at this point to just pivot and maybe change?
Yeah, well, she obviously is pivoting with all the U-turns on the budget. Look, in a way, the one thing you can say for Truss is that she went with her beliefs. She believed in growth. She believed in this kind of quasi-Thatcherite budget, so she did it. The smarter thing, the more prudent thing, of course, would have been to basically carry on Boris's agenda, but without the dodgy moral character. That's actually what people pretty much voted for. But she didn't do that. And I've been reading Dominic Cummings' blog. I've been reading it quite a lot to the point where I think I need to go for an eye test, but that's a joke from 2020. But he put that their actions, meaning Liz Truss and her team, resemble what you'd see if her enemies could brief on her behalf a few times per day. I mean, it has been that bad.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think, Sajida, of this intimation that there's going to be a backdoors plot to install a joint ticket of Penny Mordaunt and Rishi Sunak?
Yeah, the thing is, they're going to go for that. And I hear, apparently, that all the WhatsApp groups, of MPs is going crazy right now.
Of course they are.
Plotting and planning. Of course, and wouldn't you just love to be a fly on those kind of...
Well, that's where the strategies happen, except we will find out because they always leak.
I know, they always leak, conveniently. But I think because they could do it, but what good? To what good? Because, yes, you can overthrow her, you can get someone else in. She was unpopular from the beginning. Why didn't you get that? The public never really got on the with the back of her.
They didn't go for Kemi.
They're not going to, and like you said, the public are not going to want Mordaunt and Sunak. And the question is now, is it an existential threat for the party? That's the question. Are we going to need this new start-up party that Cummings wants? Are the Tories going to finally be obliterated? I mean, they've managed to survive all kinds of things. We had the Michael Howard sort of wilderness years when everyone said they were done, and they are very robust, but can they survive this?
Well, Saturday's Metro from 45p to P45. Kwasi Kwarteng has gone. Nick, it just doesn't look good, does it? And you've already made your feelings clear about Jeremy Hunt. But do you feel a little bit sorry for Kwasi?
I do a bit, yeah, because obviously who'd want to be in that position? I mean,
scapegoat.
He's the second shortest-serving Chancellor. Now, I thought, and it says here in brackets, the first one died. The first one was Ian MacLeod, who had a heart attack 30 days after taking the job in 1970. Now, I thought Zahawi was pretty brief, but he actually managed 62 days. It feels like shorter, but that's not bad compared to Kwarteng's 38. And the longest, by the way, is Reginald McKenna with the whole 565, which puts it in perspective. 38's not great.
Can we say that Kwarteng is responsible for the disaster of the mini-budget? Is it really all on his doorstep, Sajida?
No, it's not. They got together and did this together. So for Liz Truss to have no accountability...
Yeah, but she can't sack herself, can she?
No, she can't. Well, she could resign. Would that be the shortest... I don't know if that would be the shortest premier. They've had more leaders than Henry VIII had wide this term, honestly. But the thing is, I did love this little bit. Like, the Chancellor returned early from a meeting in Washington, D.C. overnight, headed straight for Liz Truss's office. So it sounds like she summoned him, but that sounds like some jealous woman, like, what were you doing in Washington, D.C.? And now you're,
I
we're
wonder
finished.
what that meeting was like.
Him, yeah.
I mean, he said in his resignation letter, he made it absolutely clear that he was pushed. He said, you have asked me to resign as Chancellor, and therefore
And did you see that Truss's letter basically said, oh, thank you for resigning? And his letter says, well, you've asked me to resign.
Exactly.
And weirdly, her letter was signed Kwasi Kwarteng, which no one understood either.
It's a big mess. They didn't know what they're doing. They're just signing papers left, right and centre. They didn't know what they're doing.
She just said, write this, I'll sign it.
Anyway, on to Saturday's Independent now, and a story sure to make a few people go postal. Sajida.
OK, so this is the Independent. Royal Mail is to cut up to 10,000 jobs by August by announcing losses of £219 million. And the company said that it started the process of consulting over right-sizing the business in response to the impact of the industrial action.
Right.
And they're actually continuing this article, blame the industrial action for the losses and for having to let all these people go, which is quite it's deliberately kind of getting the public on side to think that it's the striking that has has led to these job losses. But also, I think we've got to look at how we are different culturally. We don't really send parcels. We order everything from Amazon and like letters.
We do now, don't we?
Yeah, we do now, and we don't really. I mean, even letters. I don't know about you, but I only sort of send cards around Christmas.
Yeah.
And don't even, well, Valentine's is all over now, isn't it? Like you get to a certain age,
Don't be so defeatist, Sajila. You might get Valentine's.
I might get a Valentine's card.
Now that you're on GB News, you might get loads of Valentine's cards.
Oh, actually, I did get someone saying they wanted to be my sugar daddy, and I didn't have to have sex. And all I needed to give was my bank details. So it's a new Prince.
Oh, that's quite sweet.
It's a new Prince thing. Yeah, it's quite sweet. Yeah.
Is that Mark Dolan?
Well, anyway, next Saturday's Sun now. Genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist and petty troll has Elon tweeted up a storm again.
I thought it was about me, yeah. Elon Musk petty response after threatening to axe Starlink for Ukraine as ambassador tells him to F off.
Can you explain what Starlink is?
Yeah,
please?
Starlink was to give Ukraine internet access in really good Wi-Fi all over the place. And Musk famously at the start of the war said, you guys can have it for free, and it was a great gesture.
Yeah.
Although some people are claiming that actually they haven't received that much of it from SpaceX and people have just been bringing it in themselves. I saw a thread on Twitter, but that's sort of a digression. The point is, this ambassador for Kiev, Melnik, tweeted that because Musk has been saying some things that, of course, people call him a Russian stooge. He's been saying things like, is there a sort of peace negotiation, with Crimea and the Donbass, stuff like this. And, of course, Ukraine hasn't taken well to that.
How can they say he's a Russian stooge when he's been supporting Ukraine financially?
Because lately he's been saying, hey, is there a solution out of this that's less kind of hawkish than the Ukraine solution? And he allegedly had a phone call with Putin, who told him he'd use nukes to keep Crimea.
Well, he also had this poll where he said, which Elon Musk do you like more, one who supports Ukraine or one who supports Russia? It's almost like he can't let go of being a bit of a Twitter joker, even in the midst of something as serious as this. Sajina, do you have any thoughts about it?
I did look at that. I was thinking, well, what happens if either side wins? It's like you're saying, but maybe the vote got it, and he's decided he's going to not have his Wi-Fi in Ukraine. But I don't like the way they responded. It's like your neighbour using your your kind of Wi-Fi access,
yes,
and then them telling you to F off, and then you say, well, look, I don't want to. And why would you want to give anything to him again? And also, it's not his responsibility to kind of do that. I know he's a billionaire, but that's not his responsibility.
So you're saying he's got a point in a way when he says that actually the taxpayer should pick up the bill for extending this service to Ukraine, not his company.
Yeah,
you think that's fair enough?
I do think that's fair enough because it's not his. And also the way they've reacted to him, I wouldn't want to help them.
What do you think?
Well, he said the Pentagon should pay for it now. Yeah, he's basically gone, I've given you this free Wi-Fi, you told me to get lost. And so there was a tweet about this, and Musk said we're just following his recommendation. So they were complaining that he's going to stop giving them free Starlink. He said, well, he told us to get lost, and I have. So people are calling that petty, but I suppose, if you have just given you free service, you would be a bit peeved.
Do you think that, allegedly in this phone call with Putin made the point that he would use nukes when it came to Crimea? Is it the case that maybe Musk is sort of feeling, I've just got to back away from this and not be involved because the stakes are really, really high now?
Yeah. No,
and if nukes get involved, he doesn't want to be feeling that he's responsible for any mass deaths or deaths at all, of course.
Yeah, well, that's why he rejected the plea to extend Starlink to the peninsula in case he sparked further war. So he is involved. He knows he has a position of responsibility in the world. He's sort of trying to de-escalate, is what I think.
OK, well, I never thought I'd say this, but the Iranian authorities have gotten some bad press for ignoring women's interests. I'm truly shocked.
Gosh, this story is running on, and thankfully it is running on and on because I think it's about time we were made aware of what's happening over there. So the authorities in Iran are forced to remove a poster of women in hijabs after a PR fiasco. So there has been a montage in Tehran taken down within 24 hours with prominent women on this poster wearing hijabs, and some of them are obviously, not even around anymore. There have been some brilliant support coming out and speaking out with great quotes. So it's basically 50 Iranian women wearing the hijab under the slogan "Women of my land."
Yes.
Which these women have now got really angry because of all the protests and stuff that have been happening there recently.
And in the wake of the death of Mahsa Amini.
Absolutely. So there's a multi-award-winning actor, Fatima Motard Aira, who was the first to protest, and she said, "Not wearing a hijab, I'm not considered a woman in the land where young children, young girls, and freedom-loving youths are killed in its field."
There, in the image. I mean, it's sort of astonishing what we're seeing happening in Iran now. And this kind of thing, the fact that the government has to backtrack on this would suggest that this is gaining momentum, not just a protest anymore, more like a revolution, right?
It is a revolution, and it's affecting everyone. There's been a young son of a late actor called Huma Rosta who objected. He said it was shameful because when his mother was alive, they tried to censor her work. They tried to censor her and basically make her invisible. And now they're using her image to kind of promote Iranian values. And I think this changes are coming because the Ayatollah is not well, and this whole regime. And I think I watched a programme, a great show on Sunday, by the way. And I'm so glad you included the Iranian women, the two women that were in the guests. And you know, they said this wasn't happening before 1979.
That's
this
a
really
key point
wasn't. That's
to
what
remember.
people forget.
That, you know, the women who lived through the regime before the 1979 revolution, they weren't accustomed to wearing hijabs.
No.
They weren't accustomed to the morality police and these people who beat women who don't go along with what they say. So this idea that it's just a cultural thing and we should leave them alone because this is not Iranian culture.
It's not Iranian, it's not Islamic.
Yeah.
And that's what I think people don't realise. This is coming from Wahhabism, which is like from the middle, you know, from Saudi.
Yeah.
And it's kind of taking hold. I know we've got another story later on that kind of addresses it in the flip side.
Yes.
But I think it's amazing. I am so proud of the women in Iran right now. I mean, they are fighting back and they are fierce, and this was coming a long time.
Nick, the courage of these women has been extraordinary. But, you know, whenever we have these attempts to push back against the regime in Iran, they often get quashed. It feels like this is different, doesn't it?
Yeah, we've done so many stories on it. People have lost their fear. We've had top politicians saying that they need to be more moderate on the hijab. And now we have this absurd image, so many people complaining that they're in it or their deceased mothers are in it. One of them is allegedly a photojournalist who's serving a 4-year term in prison for insulting the state. So all these people have ended up in this picture who don't want to be in it, and it's completely ridiculous.
Yep. OK, well, we'll be keeping an eye on that, obviously. We're going to move on now. Just in time for Halloween, an alleged witch hunt is afoot. This is tomorrow's Times, Nick.
Total witch hunt, yeah. It's Donald Trump brands Capitol Riot Committee a witch hunt after subpoena. And, of course, he's called them a highly partisan political hacks and thugs. And, of course, Trump is still saying the election was rigged. They're saying Jan 6 was an insurrection, and neither's backing down. Trump has an interesting stat here. Since 1888, no incumbent president has gained votes and lost re-election. So he keeps saying, I had so many votes, how could I have possibly lost this election?
That doesn't mean that. That's not how it works.
Well, that's just one stat he's pointing to. There are various others. And yeah, it's in this stalemate with Jan 6. It is terrible. We've got people still in prison. They've been in prison for 2 years, awaiting trial in terrible conditions because of Jan 6. And this thing about, personally, I'm kind of over it. This constant attack on Trump about it. I think we need to move on. We've got Biden risking a nuclear war with his gaffes. Do you know what I mean? He thinks made in America is 2 words. We need to move on to now and the problems with Biden. Do you really care about Jan 6 anymore? Maybe you do.
Oh, well, I mean, it's not... Well, it's important. If there was wrongdoing, things have to be investigated. If he's been issued with a subpoena, now he's calling it a witch hunt. I mean, the implication is that he's not going to go along with it.
No.
Is that right, Sajid?
No, I don't think he will. It's just going to be Trump. But I kind of disagree with you, Nick, a little bit there in terms of, like, we are over it. We do need to be on it because he may come back. So we need to kind of, well, those who are not Trump fans need to kind of prevent that from happening and just remind people exactly how terrible.
Yeah, well, I think Jan 6 was overblown. What they're calling it an insurrection. But I do agree with one thing, that Trump, it perhaps isn't the best tactic to keep talking about the election being rigged. He's coming up to 2024 and he's still talking about 2020. That's not that smart.
It's not smart, is it? Because it does smack of being a sore loser. There's that.
Yeah.
And a lot of his fans don't like it either.
Well, yeah.
And also, it's just
I think it was rigged, but I still don't agree with it.
It's just so immature, though, when it's like, people are trying to investigate me. Why don't you investigate this thing that I've decided you should investigate instead? That is infantile. You can't really get
it is
around.
like it's like literally, that's it. There's a child in a playground.
And that's not going to... His supporters aren't going to like that either, I don't think. But, well, we shall see. That's all for part one. But join us in a moment for fake orgasms, a desecrated Van Gogh, and the promise of immortality. How could you possibly miss all of that? See you in a moment.
Weekday afternoons on GB News, we've got the whole of the UK covered. From 12 to 3, it's GB News Day with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Gloria Di Piero. You'll get the very latest on everything that's been going on across our great nation.
And from 3 till 6, watch out for GB News Live with me, Patrick Christys. I'm not here to mess around. With all the biggest topics and guests, you will always be up to date. GB News Day and GB News Live from 12 p.m.
Only on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Welcome back to Headliners, your first look at Saturday's newspapers. I'm Andrew Doyle, and I'm joined by two guests who are very much like Marmite, cheap and full of yeast. I've got Sajila Kershi, who's stroking my book for some reason, and I've got Nick Dixon as well. Now...
No book.
No book. Saturday's Mail now. Fake nails, fake lips and fake orgasms. Is there nothing women won't fake?
Oh, God, it sounds like an episode of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Half of you was down there in the corner when he used to be a nice guy. We used to like him.
Before he slapped comedians.
Huh?
Before he started
slapping comedians, our people.
Yeah, our people.
Our community, yeah.
There we go.
So women apparently fake orgasms because they feel insecure about being seen as abnormal or dysfunctional for not actually reaching climax, study finds. Now, this is interesting because I've never understood women why they would fake it, but apparently they're saying that if they feel insecure in a relationship or abnormal, they don't. So what they'll do is they'll cover the guys up and they'll sort of say, "Oh, you've done really well."
Yeah.
And that's a lie. That's a lie. If you're lying about that, what else are you lying about? And also, women who are less satisfied in their relationships will also fake, which means there's a problem in the relationship that you need to address.
Are you suggesting, though, I mean, that's a white lie, isn't it? Because that's a lie that is intended to comfort someone and to, you know, it comes from a good place. I don't think it's the same as, like, you know...
I've never understood this. It's like, you know, and so many women aren't really honest. Like, I spoke to a friend recently and she said, oh, you know, multiple orgasms. And I said, look, no, it's not like one week and the next week, that's not a multiple orgasm. Like, not knowing that you can have all these things because you're lying in relationships. So if you can't have sex and physically you can't bear to have them near you, there's something wrong with the relationship. If you are faking it because you don't want to hurt their feelings, then you're denying yourself your own pleasure.
Nick, don't you think most marriages become pretty sexless pretty soon?
I've never been married, Andrew, but a couple of things here. Well, it's hard for us to talk about you because you're gay and me because this would never happen to me. But the interesting part of the study actually contradicts what you're saying, that it's a white lie, because this study suggests that women do it not because they're worried about their partner, because they'll feel abnormal and weird, but they don't actually care about their partner. Yes, whereas it says up to... But hang on.
Well.
Huh?
It does say partner as well. Their partner.
My reading was different. It says that here, well, apparently up to a quarter of men may have faked orgasm. Yeah, a bit harder to do. Yeah. Not sure how that works. Maybe there's props involved. But they do it. The men do it because we're worried about the partner feeling bad, whereas the women just do it because they're worried about themselves. That's what I got from it.
Yeah, well, you would get that.
That's in the article.
You spun this as an anti-woman article. Go on, Sajila.
Can I just say what a sexist thing they say? So the main reasons for the pretense for men is due to poor sexual experience or not making the best choice of a partner. They didn't say that about the women, that they're making a bad choice. They're just saying, oh, they're just, like, insecure and they're feeling, like, bad and they don't want to make the guy feel bad.
You've missed where it says that some of them feign it on grounds of making their partner feel better about themselves. You missed the nice part about men.
But that's an afterthought.
I think this is just about... They're just being polite. Yeah, I think so. Anyway,
don't lie, women.
Saturday's Express next. What's everyone's favourite virtue-signalling crisp peddler got to say this time, Nick?
Gary Lineker has said it would be amazing if players came out during the World Cup. So he wants players to come out in Qatar where they could get killed for it. I don't know if he means players in Qatar or at home. But yes, it's a classic Gary Lineker virtue signal. He's still... Now, of course, there's nothing wrong with it in principle, but he's still going to take money to cover it on the BBC. He's not boycotting the tournament, although he is claiming, or the BBC are claiming, they won't shy away from the human rights issues. So they'll cover it. They'll say, oh, that was a good goal. But now, about their treatment of homosexuality, so they're going to somehow try and cover it while condemning it, which is difficult. But, you know, yes, it's a classic... we know Gary Lineker was famous for just breaking the impartiality rules. They finally admitted that. But, you know, I understand what he's trying to do. He's sticking up for gay people, and as a black man, he does know about oppression.
There is that. He should go out there and come out.
I think he should. I think every single person that goes to the match on the field and watching should all come out as gay or lesbian. And I think they should have on repeat a soundtrack, like, you know, songs like Katy Perry's I Kissed a Girl. They should have Electric Six Gay Bar. They should have George Michael's Outside and just constantly play that. And change their kit to a rainbow kit, because that would make me making a statement.
They do that here, Sajeela. You know, you get these rainbow football shoelaces. You get things like the BLM kneeling. You get all of that stuff. But when it happens, when you go to a country like Qatar, where there is an actual serious...
Yeah. Well, that's where you need to get all the rainbows out.
That's where it means something, right?
Get the rainbows out, get all those songs out, you know, like actually just have a mini gay pride in the arena.
Yes, but people can actually they could die for that, so they need to... I wouldn't encourage...
the death penalty.
They could only do it... Everybody
they should only do it... Yeah, well, everyone would have to do it together, but they should only do it if... You know, it's up to them if they want to take a big risk. But it's easy to say it from a studio, isn't it, at home when you're a millionaire. But, you know, on your rainbow thing, Andrew, Harry Kane has said he will wear a One Love armband, even if FIFA prohibits it. So he's making a huge difference there. OK, we're going to move on now to Saturday's Daily Mail and an anti-terror scheme for young men vulnerable to extremism. Nick, did they ever give you your hard drives back? Sajeela, you've got the information here.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because I just recently went to a workshop around this. And they were calling it a little bit racist. But anyway, let's go to the story. The government's flagship anti-terror strategy is so vague it leads to thousands of unnecessary referrals from teachers and healthcare professionals, according to a report.
This is Prevent.
Yeah, Prevent. So the article says that they found the categories of people who are like kind of addressed to Prevent, may be vulnerable to extremism under the Prevent programme, were ill-defined and lacked clear connections to violent radicalisation. And they include people with mental health issues, learning disabilities, young offenders, people who are vulnerable to offending, religious converts who were less informed about their faith. I'm not sure how that makes any kind of real impact.
But I've always struggled with this. You know, why is it that social workers and teachers, how can they be expected to spot the signs of radicalisation?
I know.
It just seems unrealistic.
No, it does. And so this is the thing. So this is one of the case studies that came up in the workshop that I went to.
Yeah.
That there was a case of a 6-year-old Muslim boy who the teacher had asked, you know, what do you do in your time off, and what do you do as your family? Tell us about your family and your family life. And he said, you know, we do Eid and we do like fasting, and then we give my father gives alms to the poor.
Oh, and they thought they meant arms as in machine guns.
So he was reported, a 6-year-old boy, by the teacher to the Prevent, and, like, obviously that made that family's life absolute hell.
Well, that sounds like
and there's been so many of those ridiculous cases. However, it's also not just Islamic extremism. It also goes into, you know, far-right extremism as well.
It does. I mean, in fact, I interviewed the Reverend David Bernard Randall. Bernard Randall, who's a reverend, he was at a school. He was the school chaplain. And he had to attend a workshop with other members of staff where they were told by a visiting speaker to chant "smash heteronormativity." He didn't like this, and so he gave a sermon saying that we have to be able to respectfully challenge these views. And the school itself reported him to Prevent for extremist, terrorist behaviour because he doesn't agree with the idea of having to go along with gender ideology. Isn't that strange?
Well,
that is strange, but Prevent obviously hasn't worked. There's been past reports that they overplayed the issue of far-right terrorism compared to Islamic terrorism. That's been the criticism. And it says here 6 of the 11 most significant recent terror attacks were carried out by individuals who had gone through Prevent. Now, tomorrow is I believe, the first anniversary of the brutal murder of David Ames, the MP, Sir David Ames, and he was killed by Ali Harbour Ali, who went through the Prevent programme, but a year later it was concluded he posed no threat. And he stabbed David Ames to death.
In which case, what use is Prevent?
Well, yes, and you can go on. There's Usman Khan stabbed 2 young graduates. He'd been in contact with Prevent. And it goes on and on. All these people, they were told that they didn't require intervention. There's just endless examples. The guy that put a device on the tube. Yeah, it's clearly not working. Yeah.
OK. Well, Saturday's Telegraph now. There is soup on the walls of an art gallery, but it's not Andy Warhol this time. Nick?
Yes, well, it's Just Stop Oil activists who have thrown soup on Van Gogh's painting, The Sunflowers. You may have seen it on Twitter. I have. It's pretty pathetic.
I think we've got the video. We can see what this looks like.
There we go. No surprise, pink hair. That's mandatory.
I was going to do my hair pink when it went grey.
Then you can get involved with Just Stop Oil. That's Phoebe Plummer, who's 21, and Anna Holland. And
she's really called Plummer.
Of course she's called Plummer.
Because she's got the most plummy accent.
Exactly.
They are so posh, these kids.
She calls herself Ziggy Stardike as well, as one of her aliases. So, yeah, look, you know what, it's posh, narcissistic people. Some of them may genuinely believe it and have been brainwashed into it. The rest are sort of posh, narcissist young people looking for attention, I think. And she says here, Plummer, what is worth more, art or life? I think they shouted, actually, at the painting. Is it worth more than food, worth more than justice? Why do we have to choose between art and food? I'm not quite clear on this.
It's utterly incoherent. But, of course, what is happening here is they're choosing a famous, much-loved painting to draw attention to their cause. That's the idea, I suppose.
Yeah, but it doesn't. It annoys people. And I kind of been saying this recently as well, that it is posh middle-class people. And it's across all these kind of protesters where I've been protesting my whole life, right? And it's not been because we come from a place of where we don't have and then we're trying to get something for us. I don't understand what their cause is. I don't understand what is it you don't want. I mean, because starving artists, what are you trying to make a comparison? I don't know what...
No, I mean, a lot of these activists do, they have bought into a certain ideology. They do believe that Western civilization needs to be dismantled. And so when they take these images, these iconic images from civilization, the art being the sort of greatest achievement of humankind, and attack that. I mean, I agree with you. I think that just alienates people from their cause. I think people... But also, it is authoritarian. Whenever you destroy or vandalise art, you have fallen into that authoritarian bracket.
Yeah, I think they see it as some sort of punk radical thing. Some of them are actually art students, so I reckon they see it as like a kind of art. This destruction of art.
That's so boring. People have done that for years.
I know it's not. I'm saying how some of them probably see it.
It's equivalent of burning books and destroying art like that, that you know, obviously, really...
There's not a good precedent for that in history,
no, there isn't.
No. Saturday's Times now. France cracks down on pupils in Islamic dress. Can you lift the veil on this one, Sajila?
God, I like that little pun there. Yeah, so I do really... This is like the flip side of the Iranian story. So I abhor, I am so angry when it comes to legislation around telling women what they can wear and what they can't wear. So in France pledges crackdown on people's Islamic dress. That's in the Times. And what they're doing is they're cracking down on. They're saying that there's been a lot of internet influencers who are encouraging this Islamic dress, the abayas, and the hijab, the burqa, and they're just influencers, young influencers.
Yes.
These are young people. So they want to do is they want to ban all this. And this has been ongoing in France for a long time now.
Oh, yeah.
But they want to sort of eradicate. And what happens when you tell young teenage kids that you're not allowed to wear something? It's going to make them want to wear it more. Knowing young Muslim people, and I don't get it, I won't lie, myself, I don't get it.
Yeah.
Like, why do you want to wear this? Why, when it's been such a huge thing in Iran or in, these Islamic countries, I don't get it. But it's like, for them, it's a fashion. It isn't even a statement, it's a fashion.
But isn't that quite sad? Because, of course, they might have the choice to wear the veil.
Yeah, they do have,
but
and
in
they
Iran,
choose to wear it. Yeah, but they don't. But then I think there's two sides of the same coin. You cannot force a woman to wear one, and you cannot force a woman to not wear one.
Sure.
It's a woman's choice, and that 100% I have to kind of really fight for that.
But Nick, I mean, the point is in that the French Constitution is built on this idea of laïcité, secularism. So this separation of the private life from the public sphere, and the idea being that religious symbolism in public of any kind, this isn't just targeted at Islam. That's a general principle, and also within that, of course, is the idea that the government has no place intervening in people's religious affairs as well. So there is a principle that kind of makes sense. It feels odd to us because we don't have this, but it's. Do you think there's any merit to it?
Yeah, it makes sense in terms of asserting the values of your culture, in that case, what you've just outlined. So I think it makes sense in that case. The part I struggle with is this has come about because of immigration. So you bring in cultures that are different from the prevailing culture, as you pointed out, and then you say you can't wear the things. So I'm a bit torn on that. I think the issue is really immigration, but if you have people in the country who are, different customs... Then is it fair to say you can't wear it at that point? I don't know.
OK, so
can I just come in with that? Right, so it's not... This is the thing. It's not like the first generation. You talk about immigrants. These are children of immigrants, right? These are young people...
These are French kids.
...who have chosen... And I am baffled. I do this in my shows. I am baffled by you. My generation was fighting for your right to party. I didn't go and support Duran Duran so you could support ISIS. I don't get it.
Yeah.
I don't get it. It's just like... it isn't anything to do with the present immigration situation. These are young people who have been in the same way as, the ideology of gender ideology. It's the same ideology that they're, and their job is literally a fashion thing. They're still doing all the other Western stuff, can I just say?
So some of these kids are wearing it as a fashion accessory.
Yeah, I do believe that's what it is. And it's almost like, well, if you're telling me not to wear it, I'm going to wear it.
Well, it's almost about persuasion now. There's a really good book by Yasmin Alabai-Brown, Refusing the Veil. It's a very, very strong book, and I would recommend it. But anyway, let's move on now. That's it for part 2. Join us after the break, when we're going to be talking about AI sex dolls, child crime gangs, and some slightly less dystopian stories. We'll see you in a few minutes.
Weekday afternoons on GB News, we've got the whole of the UK covered. From 12 to 3, it's GB News Day with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Gloria Di Piero. You'll get the very latest on everything that's been going on across our great nation.
And from 3 till 6, watch out for GB News Live with me, Patrick Christys. I'm not here to mess around with all the biggest topics and guests. You will always be up to date. GB News Day and GB News Live from 12 p.m.
Only on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, We're
on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm still Andrew Doyle, and with me I have Sajila Kershi and Nick Dixon, and we are taking you through Saturday's newspapers. So, a famous giant with messy hair and a huge beard. No, it's not Nick's last Tinder date. Hagrid actor Robbie Coltrane has very sadly died. So tell us what the Mirror has to say, Nick.
Yeah, Robbie Coltrane has died at age 72, and we all remember him from comedy from when we were younger. Nuns on the Run, I particularly remember. And, of course, Harry Potter fans will know him from those movies. And everyone's just saying how supportive and funny he was on set. People like Stephen Fry, obviously J.K. Rowling has praised him as well. And everyone just seems to say he was very funny, very supportive, good guy.
Yeah, and of course, he was in Cracker, which was very popular. And he played a really good Samuel Pepys in Blackadder. Yeah. It was really funny. I mean, he's a brilliant guy, brilliant actor.
Body of work is just incredible that leaves behind.
Yes.
From comedy, Shakespeare, actor, James Bond films, and as you said, Hagrid, and my son really loves him because obviously he grew up with Harry Potter.
Yeah.
And I just would have loved to have met him. He just genuinely seemed like a really nice guy.
Yeah, it's very, very sad. And of course, we've seen some, because he was supportive of J.K. Rowling, a lot of activists are now attacking him immediately after he's died,
Oh,
sort of
for
saying
goodness
some
sake.
absolutely horrible things on social media because they're not very nice people, let's be honest about that. Anyway, we're going to move on now to, let's have a look. This is actually The Star, and this is death being optional. What's this about, Sajila? Can this be the case?
This is... OK, death will soon be optional as it's a technical problem that we can reverse, says a doctor.
A technical problem?
Yes. This is in the Daily Star, so please make of it what you will.
All right, OK.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury. So Dr Jose Cordero revealed that some wacky plans at the Dubai Future Forum... I didn't know this place... This obviously like some ideal home exhibition type thing, including a vision of humanity where humans are invincible as scientists are very close to figuring out what the problem of death... The problem with death is that it's final
And it's part of the human condition. Nick, would you want to live in a world where you lived forever?
I would, yeah. And,
really?
Really? Yeah, of course, and I believe it's possible. Aubrey de Grey is one of the guys, I mentioned quite a lot on here, he's talked about it a lot, and he sees it, death and old age, as a cellular damage that can be reversed. And he says we have a moral responsibility to tackle that, as that's the problem that causes the greatest suffering. So in other words, if they were throwing soup at a painting over this cause, I would be there throwing soup with them, because that's the most serious possible thing. Now, this guy, Cadero, has said that I personally don't plan to die. He might be a bit optimistic, because he says we're very close to figuring it out. May not be that close. I mean, de Grey says the first person who will live to 1,000 has already been born, so he's also quite optimistic. And the key is this longevity escape velocity, meaning that life expectancy rises faster than the rate people age. So, you know, my fear would always be like, we just miss out. They solved death, but I just missed out. But this is saying that, because we're living longer and longer, we'll sort of outrun death, if you like.
I don't want to outrun death.
No.
I don't want to. So it says here scientists are now studying an immortal jellyfish, right, which can re-emerge in a new body after 36 hours of being physically damaged and starved. I don't want to come back as a jellyfish, because that's actually what might happen.
They'll use the jellyfish to make you better. They won't make you a jellyfish.
Don't mess with Mother Nature. We are meant to die.
Pet Cemetery. You know, you think you're dead, and you come back as an evil zombie.
No, you don't die because of longevity escape velocity. You don't die in the first velocity. You don't die.
Listen, the point about this is, as a Christian, you shouldn't be saying this, because of course you're looking forward to the afterlife.
Well, that's my only concern about it. Is that a contradiction? I need to think that through. I do need to think that through.
I would have thought so.
Can I just quickly plug a podcast that I'm making with a hospice called St Christopher's, called Dead Good, and it's all about death and grieving and coming to terms with it and not wanting to live forever.
Yeah.
But what if you're really cool and smart?
I know the world would be a poorer place without the big dog.
Thank you.
But the thing is, I think we do have to accept that, and coming to terms with it. And some cultures are better than others at coming to terms with death. I think we used to be better at it in this country hundreds of years ago.
Yeah.
But now we are very we have this I think it's to do with narcissism, this narcissistic idea that, well, we can't die, it can't happen to us. Imagine a world without us, it doesn't make sense, but of course it does.
It probably helps if you have children. Of course, I don't, because I can't afford them because of the cost of living crisis. But if you have children, it probably helps in a way.
Yeah, it does help you to accept it, but then you also want to live as long as possible for them.
Right.
So, but I don't want to live.
So you're back to this. You're back to the jellyfish.
Yeah, no, but what?
You'll be embracing the jellyfish. Embrace the jellyfish.
I'll raise the jellyfish, but I don't want to outlive my family and my friends, the people that matter to me. What's the point? I don't want to be hanging around with people I might not like in the future.
Hang out with Andrew. He'll be one of the ones living forever. He'll have access to all the elite stuff.
Oh my God!
He'll have access to elite jellyfish. He knows a lot of people.
Anyway, as if you needed another reason to hate cyclists, they're proudly blaring their music in the streets. Nick, this is from Saturday's Independent. Tell me what's going on here.
So I'm still laughing at he'll have access to elite jellyfish. But I'll crack on. So this is a guy in the Independent who can't, and it's called sodcasting, apparently. It's where you blare out your music obnoxiously instead of using headphones. And he's puzzling. He's called Oliver Keynes, and he's saying, why am I like this? And the answer, of course, is he's an idiot and a bad person. But I don't know why he's puzzling this out. I mean,
doesn't need a whole article to say that.
I know. And of course, he's a DJ, so it's no surprise. And he also says this has picked up more since the pandemic, and which is weird. But actually, it did happen in my building, in my block of flats when it was the lockdown. One of my neighbours said, I'm DJing for the whole block, and he played his music so loud that in the communal garden area thing, that's all anyone could hear, and in the whole block. And I was thinking, how obnoxious do you have to be when people are forced to stay in their houses and work from home to decide that they all want to hear your music? So this guy is one of these people that thinks everyone wants to hear from him.
Well, what is it about? I mean, is it just this sort of narcissistic idea that your taste in music is so wonderful that you have to foist it on the world? I hate this. I mean, I remember being at university, and I remember these American students, they always used to do. They used to put their speakers, their face out of their window, so we had to listen to their terrible R&B. And I did think they ought to be poisoned at that point.
But
I just think that's
I mean, this is it. It can lead to terrible
murderous thoughts. I'm a pacifist.
Yeah, I know, and I think that's terrible. But I do think that I have an understanding of that. I think it's because they want to bring someone into the party. So that's just like they're pushing the music out, and they want to be.
To coax people
in. We want you to be part of the vibe. But I do love that they called it that the men who do these, they're marinated in male privilege. I'm going to use that. That's so beautiful. Marinated in male privilege.
You don't see women doing this, and you see people on the tube playing music loudly on their phones,
and they're doing this like dancing. And
a friend of mine, and this is true, a friend of mine, someone was doing that on the tube, and my friend of mine, who's very confrontational, said to this man, "You do realise everyone on this tube hates you right now." And I think a fight ensued, so there we go.
See, there you go, inciting more violence.
There we go.
That's one bit where I have to stand up for men. That's when you realise this was in the Independent, that it's marinated in male privilege. I don't believe it's not male privilege. It's just being a bit of not.
Oh well, I mean, the Independent's just a stupid blog at this point. Let's be honest. Anyway, we're going to move on to next story in the Mail. So a study shows women are better at remembering words. And presumably then holding them against you.
Oh, we're like elephants like that. My God, yes. Wrong a woman and she will always remember like an elephant.
Yep.
So the Daily Mail, women are better at crosswords. Study proves women are more adept at finding and remembering words than men. Obviously not this woman sitting here. So apparently when they say, when you pick your Scrabble partner, just make sure it's a woman because she's going to be better at doing this. There's a researcher from the University of Bergen in Norway analysed the results of 168 studies and gender differences on verbal fluency and verbal episodic memory. So verbal fluency...
You're not really proving the point here.
Yeah. No, I told you I was not one of those women. Honestly, I'm rubbish. So it's got verbal fluency is a measure of one's vocabulary, whereas verbal episodic memory is the ability to recall words that you've come across in the past. And that's the bit I remember. I remember really, really old words, old things, but I can't remember just
I
moment.
think there might be something to this. My mother is incredibly good at Scrabble. And, I think there's something to this. What do you think, Nick?
No,
I know what you're going to say.
Well, look, let's just stick with the article then. It says, there's a subtitle here, How Men and Women's Brains Are Wired Differently. But if I say that, I get in trouble. And there's an interesting bit here. It says, the maps show that men's brains may be hardwired for better special awareness and motor skills. Basically saying men are better at stuff like driving, but the article's saying it's science.
OK.
But do you really believe this?
Is it really that controversial to say that there are
I think I have an amazing vocabulary, so I don't believe in this.
OK, so I will add to that. Also in this article is that they're saying that it depends on the gender of the person who's doing the scientist, what gender they are, on what bias they fall on.
Oh, really?
With who gets the better memory. So if it's a female scientist, they report a female advantage and vice versa. So both male and female first authors reported better performance with the participants in their own gender. So that's quite interesting.
So there's a bit of bias.
Yeah.
But I mean, look, this is just about trends, isn't it? There are exceptions to all of this sort of stuff. But, if scientists are confirming again and again, as they always have, that there are fundamental differences between the way men and women behave and their brain development and the rest of it, but apparently that all disappears when it comes to sports. And then you can just sort of identify your way.
Or when it comes to running as a Labour MP in Sheffield.
Yeah, there's that as well. Absolutely. Ooh, controversial. Anyway, we're going to move on to this story, and this one is The Express. It's like Oliver Twist without the Cockney charm, child crime gangs running amok. Nick, what the hell is going on?
Yeah, I feel a bit bad because this is in Blackpool, near where I'm from, and it's not representing the North very well. So crime gang terrorising Blackpool has boy 11 as its ringleader. That's not his name. We just saw the other day people are called 11 now because of some Netflix show. But no, that's his age. So an 11-year-old is terrorising Blackpool. And he's actually responsible for more than 80 different offences, including assault on a female police officer.
So he's like a proper gangster warlord.
He's a gangster warlord, and he's holding Blackpool to ransom. And they can't do anything because they won't criminalise teenagers.
Well, also because
he's not even a teenager. He's 11. I know. I don't know why it
probably looks quite sweet. And why would you want to...
He's like the Antichrist of Blackpool. Do you know what I mean? It's like you just...
The Antichrist of Blackpool.
It is. It's just like you don't want to go anywhere near him. So everything you touch, I just think it's going to go up to
How is it that a child can be that evil at that age? That surely is a failure of socialisation, right? I don't think we can really blame the kid at that point, can we?
No, I think you've got to go back to his home and find out what's happening in his household to make him that violent, that aggressive. 11 years old.
Not just the parents, isn't it? The influence of Blackpool and, those kind of things.
How dare you, Andy? It's just a decline of the whole country and all our standards and morals.
Well, I wouldn't go that far because I've never met an 11-year-old gangster. I didn't know that they existed.
Invite him onto your show.
But like we say, Oliver Twist, that's that Fagin, but it's also a whole bunch of gangsters and they're all prepubescent.
You've also never been to the north, to be fair.
Well, I don't go there. Why would I do that? It's too dangerous. Anyway, here's an infinitely dense black hole spewing out debris. No, it's not the Mrs. Brown's Boys writers. What's in the Mail, Nick?
Yeah, well, it says, we've never seen anything like this before. Astronomers spot black hole spewing out material 3 years after shredding a star. And it's being called a cosmic burp. So it eats up all this material or stars and stuff. But I don't know. It's space. I don't understand it at all. Okay. But apparently, look, I don't believe some of their things either. It says when a star gets too close to a black hole, it undergoes spaghettification. They're making this up.
I've got exactly the same. They're making up words.
They're not. So apparently, and at least spaghettification makes some sense insofar because rather than using these sort of Latin designations and things like that that alienate people, spaghettification, you understand what it means. You can visualise it.
But that's alienated me.
Well, the black hole it stretches. The star stretches when it goes near to the black hole in the way that spaghetti.
It's a tidal disruption event, I would describe it as, Andrew.
Would you? Because you just saw it in the article?
No, I've always said this.
You've always said... You keep going on about it, actually. You have done that for a while. Sajila, do you have any thoughts on astronomy?
I don't. I don't bother reading my star signs anymore. I don't.
That's astrology.
No, astrology. OK, well, there you go. That's how much I know. But I just think people who want to go and live in Mars, people who want to go and explore, I don't care. I like my planet. I like my planet. I want to stay on my planet.
Very set in your ways, Sajila.
I'm not going anywhere else. That's it.
That's a bit Brexit-y for you, Sajila.
I think it's very exciting, sort of all these developments in outer space and, the way in which we could potentially go to Mars one day. I'd be happy with that. I think we should expand. I've seen Total Recall. It's one of my favourite films.
I've seen Total Recall, but if you go out there without your mask, see what happens.
Well, sure, I know, but you wouldn't be so stupid as to do that, Yeah, it's not like you just forget it, leave it at home.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's absolutely clear that none of us really understand the details of that story, which is why we ended up talking about an Arnold Schwarzenegger film. Anyway, we're moving on now to Saturday's Daily Star. Shark attacks, apparently, give you clout. Sajila, would you wrestle a shark for a good story?
Do I've had so much real drama in my life, like proper, big-time things that, you can't compete on. You can't, boys. But the thing is, there's a shocking percentage of people say they'd be attacked by a shark just to have a cool story.
Why did they conduct this survey? I mean, who thought of this particular idea?
Basically, American survey surveyed by FloridaPanhandle.com.
And that's the key.
And YouGov. Oh, I see.
It's in Florida.
OK, all right, yeah.
What does that mean? They've got a lot of time in their hands.
Florida man. Do you not know the Florida man mean?
No.
Florida, they do crazy stuff in Florida.
OK,
is that
your
just a thing they do? OK, so go on.
OK, so basically, they'd be attacked by a shark if they knew they'd survive just for the story. The thing is, 170 people out of 1,000 who... They would volunteer to put themselves forward to be attacked as shark bait, basically just be bait, just so they'd have an anecdote. That's quite shocking. 170 people out of 1,000. 170 people. These are the same crazy people.
I mean, that's
who probably
insane.
do selfies, like on the tallest buildings,
yes.
and would put themselves in that danger. So Jasmine Diaz, marketing officer at Florida Panhandle, who was involved in the data collection, said sharks, when they bite, they don't just nibble a little bit.
No, they don't. But this is the incredible thing. Have you seen those footage of the drone?